Don't sound so excited. That's the smile I want to see, Ben, like you had the other day. I want to thank I want to welcome everyone to the 40 Satirics. No politics allowed. I'd like to remind everyone this podcast is being recorded. We follow Carling's rule with one addition. Please be wearing pants, Lewis. Let's welcome the Esoterics managing editor, food connoisseur of American greatness, Ben Boychick. Chick.
Hi.
Is it
How
really
are you?
Chick? Chuck? Chick?
Chuck.
And Lewis, Mr. Esoteric himself, fine. And we are a small group. We are a small lot today, but you can find us at the 4 Esoterics. That's the number 4, ESOTERICS. On Twitter, you can find us on Parlay, and you can find us on iTunes, YouTube. Subscribe to us, love us. We beg of you to love us and like us. And some interesting good news to report, guys, before we start the show. We did shoot a special episode the other day that'll be out soon that we think is sheer brilliance. And you were all amazing on it. And I just want to thank you. That's what we were doing Tuesday afternoon.
No, you were amazing.
Why, thank you. And Lewis just absolutely rocked it. And great job to all. And I want to welcome all our attendees today. And like I said, we are an esoteric short and a esoteric short. But that doesn't stop the show from going on. Producer girlfriend will be a big part of this show since she went to film school and likes to tell us about it. And
For 25 years.
And we are discussing dystopian films today. And my knowledge of dystopian films, and I spoke to Lewis about this before the show, Ben, I don't go pre-50
Yes.
or pre-60, so my film knowledge isn't that versed in that that. So, and I was asking him, was Rod Sterling the was he the leader of dystopian movies? Was he the leader of dystopian TV? And that's the first question I want to throw out there. Producer girlfriend can answer. All you guys can answer. I'm just curious because pre-1960s, was there that Rod Sterling vibe in movies and television?
Well, probably the most, the biggest one of the early cinema was Metropolis by Fritz Lang. That's really kind of going back. An excellent display of Art Deco production design, if I may say so myself. But it's, it can be quite tedious to get through at times. It could be.
So that's one movie. So you've.
So there's one, yeah.
Right. So there's one, but let's take Rod Sterling, right? So Lewis brought up a great point. Go for it, Lewis.
His most dystopian piece of work is his screenplay for Planet of the Apes.
That's a good one. That's a good point.
That is a good one. And Heston was in 2 great dystopian movies, which would be Planet of the Apes and Omega Man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And Soylent Green.
Oh yeah.
That's another. So what would your definition of dystopian be? Just because I think everybody I think has a different definition of what sci-fi is. Because my definition, Ben, and your definition I think are very similar in some ways, but we don't look at the TV show The Flash as a sci-fi show. So
why not?
Sorry?
Why not?
Because I believe it's very politically laced. I believe it's politically laced. I believe that was the great thing for me about Rod Sterling was he was able to paint the picture and let you decide. He never pushed anything on you. And if you watch any of those shows like Arrow or any of those shows on the, on Netflix or WB, whatever they're on, they're all very politically laced in messages.
Well, I think, and I think maybe producer girlfriend can weigh in here too. I think that all of those, the kind of films we're talking about have a point of view. Rod Sterling has a point of view. Rod Sterling was a very, very left-wing guy, as we talked about in the Twilight Zone episode some time back. I think,
but he didn't push it, is what I mean.
I think it was just in the air. I think it was just the air that you breathed.
Right.
I think that it's just like there were 3 broadcast networks with 3 evening news that took all of their cues from whatever was in the New York Times that day. I mean, it was very much of a monolithic view of things. I just wanted to kind of amplify something that producer girlfriend said a moment ago, bringing up Metropolis, which was really kind of the proto film noir, right?
Yeah,
And
one of.
all those films, I don't know if you'd call them dystopian, but they're laced with darkness and paranoia, and tragic sort of anti-heroes and femme fatales. I don't know that those movies fit into the definition of what we're trying to discuss, but
what that's my question. What is your definition of dystopian? You're the
well, I mean, dystopia is the opposite of utopia, right? And utopia is a perfect place, and so dystopia is the opposite. And so it's when the kind of movies that I think we're going to be talking about, and I certainly enjoy, show society that has been stripped of all that's good, or most that's good, or that the heroes in the films are trying to restore light into a very, very dark place.
But also generally have a flaw of darkness within them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way they go about to try and capture that that light is usually in a very unorthodox way.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Thinking about the protagonists of all the movies, of the movies that are on my list, I think that's exactly right.
It's funny. I think we have very different lists. Lewis, what's your definition, or what are your thoughts about dystopian movies?
Sleepless in Seattle. You've got Mail. Anything with Meg Ryan in it, or Billy Crystal
and Tom Hanks. You mean Tom
Hanks? Right.
It's Billy Crystal wasn't in those, but
right. Yeah. Well, Dying, or is it Dying Young with Julia Roberts? So the classics, of course, Blade Runner, and it's just the sequel's great, even though I get the year wrong. What is it, Ben? Was it Blade Runner 2049?
2049.
Great, what a great movie. The other, which I need to see because I've only seen the short, George Lucas's TX 1169 21 Jump Street. What else do we have in that genre? Fahrenheit 451, film version, and the book, of course. The best dystopian film adaptation, I assert, is a 2-minute commercial, if it's that long, of Ridley Scott's 1984 ad for Apple Macintosh, which is not a deliberate or deliberately authorized film adaptation of 1984, but of the film adaptations of 1984. Those 2 minutes surpass anything that's been done on film of concerning Orwell's works, and it's just brilliant, regardless of one's interest in computing or Apple or Macintosh, and it still holds up because there's a retro element to it, and I think that's true of the best sci-fi.
Remember Max Headroom?
Yeah, but that was more. He was just more of kind of like an '80s pop culture icon.
Honest to God, I don't remember. So
another dystopia, a more recent dystopian film that has aged well, not the sequels, the original, The Matrix.
Yes.
What about John? Is John Wick? Would John Wick be considered dystopian?
I don't think so.
That's John Wick today. I think Americans long for a real life John Wick.
Yeah, they do. And Darcy wrote, going with producer girlfriend, I guess there was a Kevin Bacon show on called The Following. Phil, have you seen that?
Logan's Run.
Logan's Run. Phil.
Running Man.
Okay, that gets. We'll get into the '80s, because I think the '80s was a real decade of dystopian films. I mean, just by all different bunch of directors and all different bunch of writers.
Max Headroom, by the way, you're mistaken, Lewis. I mean, the Coke commercial Max Headroom that's yes, but the show,
I never, yeah.
the show was very dark.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it was very dark. It was
30 years
all
ago.
about, it was all about a kind of a totalitarian type of society, and hence, you know, it was low rated, and that was one of the fledgling efforts, one of those fan efforts to get a show uncanceled by a network, and it didn't quite. I don't think it quite worked out.
I'm also curious to hear from, you know, our attendees that live in different places, because, you know, one of them is from Australia, right? Where the famous, you know, where
Mad Max.
Sorry?
Mad
Yeah,
Max.
Mad Max. How insane is it that Mel Gibson, this is something I still don't understand. He was born and raised in Peekskill, New York, left the States with his family at the age of 12. And when he made Mad Max, is Mad Max the first one, or is it the Road Warrior?
The Road Warrior.
Road Warrior.
So they had to dub his voice in the Road Warrior, which to me is still astonishing, because when I would think by the time you're 12.
Right. Phil's right. Sorry, we screwed up. Mad Max was first. Road Warrior
So
second.
they dubbed, and now he doesn't.
He's our ombudsman.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to have any trace of an Australian accent anymore. But yes, Mad Max. We've got our friend on the couch in Scotland. So in the UK, you've got Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. Yes, A Clockwork Orange, which is off the rails as it gets.
Man, I would say it's dystopian, even though they did a remake of it. Not that that matters, and the remake is junk.
What about Caligula?
I was going to say Straw Dogs.
Oh,
they did do a remake of it that wasn't very.
I know.
But yeah, and if you just tuned in, you are listening to the Four Esoterics. Today we're discussing dystopian films and dystopian TV shows. Let's not forget, you know, you have The Walking Dead on. You have a lot of shows that are similar. Westworld is a sort of, I would imagine, a dystopian.
Oh yeah,
that qualifies.
Crichton, so much of Crichton is dystopian. Andromeda Strain, the Westworld, the movie with what a cast: Richard Benjamin, James Brolin, and right? Yeah, Yul Brynner. It was I believe it was directed by Crichton. I think it was his directorial debut.
It was. First or second,
and I think it was his first. And then, but Jurassic Park is also in its own way. It's as far as I'm concerned, Jurassic Park is a riff on Westworld. It's the theme park attacking the attendees. It's just, instead of robots, we've got dinosaurs.
I want to take a quick break. If you just tuned in, you're listening to at 4 Esoterics. That's the number 4 ESOTERICS. Find us on iTunes, YouTube. Subscribe to us, love us, like us. But when I get back, there's something I want you to get to what Ben said, which is what the 80s was a very prophetic decade of the future as far as dystopian films go. And I want you to think about that for 30 or 40 seconds as producer girlfriend tells us about the best breadsticks in America.
When I was in grad school, one of my mentors happened to be the production designer of Blade Runner, Larry Paul. Larry Paul was one of the first people to have Colleen's Better Than Breadsticks. Now, you may think I bribed him to get my A, but in fact, he made me work for it, as all old school Chicagoans do. If you are in New Jersey, Manhattan, Michigan, Chicagoland area, or Santa Barbara, you can pick up Colleen's Better Than Breadsticks. But if you don't live in one of those areas, coming to you soon is Colleen, COLEENS, betterthan.com, where you can order a bag yourself. If you can't wait for the website to go up, which will happen shortly, all you have to do is email info.colleensbetterthan@gmail.com. Use the code producer girlfriend to get 10% off. Colleen's better than breadsticks. You're a perfect pandemic treat.
Welcome everybody back to the Four Esoterics. Get those breadsticks. Kristen Fowler made a good point that Lewis knows a lot about Mel Gibson. Just an odd thought, but before break, Ben, I was asking you because we had these '80s movies, especially John Carpenter. You know, you had obviously Escape from New York. You had RoboCop. You had all these prophetic movies that actually have seemed to come true, right? Whoever thought Detroit would go,
Right.
would be where it is.
Right. Well, yeah, I wanted to put in the word for probably it vies with Apocalypse Now as my favorite movie of all time, which is Brazil.
So
and they're different versions.
John Milius was exceptional at writing dystopian movies.
Milius didn't write Brazil.
No, but he wrote Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
And he also wrote a movie I was going to bring up, which was Red Dawn.
Red Dawn is good.
And Conan the Barbarian, and all, and also Dirty Harry, which could be considered in a sense.
Oh, sure, yeah, especially for the time.
An extremely flawed society.
But Brazil is the ultimate sort of critique of the permanent bureaucracy. How totalitarian societies operate in such a sort of a mundane but horrifying way. And here we go, going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago. You have this hero, this nobody, Sam Lowry, who
the garbage man.
No, he's not the garbage man. He was a low-level bureaucrat who gets involved in this case of mistaken identity, and then gets sucked into this sort of terrorist cell. But what makes the movie part of what makes the movie so great is that the contrast between the life that Sam, who's played by Jonathan Pryce, he leads in his real life, and then these magnificent dreams that he has, where he's literally in shining armor, and he has these wings and this great sword, and he's fighting and killing monsters. And I don't know, I first saw that movie when I was probably, I don't know, 13 or 14. And again, that's the age where culture really imprints itself on your consciousness. And so I've seen it many, many times since then. There's a wonderful.
What year did it come out? 78?
No, it came out in
the 80s,
1985. And there's it's as storied as much for the troubled production as it is for the movie itself, because Terry Gilliam made it and Universal made a mess of it. There's a wonderful Criterion set that includes sort of the original, Universal's terrible cut, his cut, and then there's another version.
Same thing with Blade Runner. There's like 27 different versions.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And
I have a lot of Blade Runner stories when we get to it.
Yeah.
Well, get to Blade Runner. Go for it.
Yeah.
So as I said in my commercial, I was really lucky that I took a production design selection track in grad school. So even though I was more on the camera track, I enjoyed doing the production design stuff. And the school that I went to happened to get this world famous production designer, Larry Paul, who you can look him up. He did City Slickers, Back to the Future. I mean, he's one of the greats, but his pièce de la résistance was Blade Runner. And he said it was one of his first times working with Ridley Scott. But what he learned about Ridley was how intense he was from the get-go. And anyone who knew Larry also knew that once he went into conversation with you about anything, story, design, architecture, he was really hyper-focused. I mean, this was a man who studied architecture under Frank Lloyd Wright at University of Illinois at one point, then went into production design. So when Ridley said to him, "I need you to build this world," he took on that challenge. And at one point, the movie got shut down for 9 months, and Ridley kept Larry and his entire design team designing on his own dime, which is why it led to eventually a BAFTA and then an Oscar. And to be fair, Larry does think that he was snubbed from his Oscar, and I would agree with it. But Larry once told me this story on how they had designed the whole world. There was this beautiful crane move. I think it was Michael Chapman shot it, where it came down and you saw the sign, and then you went through the whole world. This beautiful, beautiful crane move. And Larry said that when he saw the rough cut and he saw this shot, he thought, this is my Oscar shot. This is what's going to win it. And it didn't make it into the original film. And to this day, Larry thinks that that's what cost him the Oscar. The saddest part of the story is him and Ridley really didn't get along. The studio that put it up wanted kind of nothing to do with anyone other than Ridley Scott after the film was done. So the DP, production design, sound, all those teams really kind of got put up on the back burner, even though that they were all nominated for Oscars. Larry passed away last fall. Larry passed away in November of 2020. So what makes my interesting fact of today is the man who designed November of 2020 died in November of 2020. If that's not weird, I don't know what is.
Oh, there you are. That's that is a great story. And it was an incredible movie. It was a movie that was really before its time.
Well, it was not two things unrelated, of course. First, producer girlfriend, I was hoping for a final sentence. Larry sexually harassed me when he showed me one of the spinners. He had me sit in it, and the next thing I knew, I was not holding a prop but his appendage. I filed suit against his estate. The lawsuit is still pending. I try to remember him as a good professor and a good man who was simply a depressed widower looking for an outlet. Secondly, on a completely different note, the film was not commercially successful because of two reasons.
It was 90 minutes long.
No. One, Harrison Ford, who is great in the movie.
Correct.
But thank you. And but the movie came out in what, 81 or 82?
82.
So pre-Indiana Jones.
This is between Star Wars and Empire?
Yeah.
Or right after Empire? Or on the cusp of Empire? I think a lot of people went into this movie expecting the kind of tempo and excitement of Star Wars, and this is aged much better than George Lucas's touch-ups of the trilogy, because especially Star Wars, which is what, episode 3 or however, the first Star Wars movie, which was fine as it was.
Before I forget, Ben, I have an interesting question for you, because you actually brought up Apocalypse Now, and is that dystopian or is that reality?
No, he said it's one of his favorite movies.
Oh,
yeah, it's one of my, but in the dystopian category, that's Brazil all the way.
So what are your top 5 dystopian?
Oh, well, so after Brazil, I had to write it down. 12 Monkeys.
Oh my God, that was
great. Another Terry Gilliam.
Great movie. Great movie.
Gilliam, this we could do a whole thing on Gilliam probably.
No, but you know what's really funny? We were talking the other day, producer girlfriend and I were watching The Expendables, and the second one has Bruce Willis in it. And we were like rating like the tier of like, The Expendables, how big their careers were, or who was the sort of, and Bruce Willis to me from the 80s action stars is totally separate, has had the finest work out of any of them.
Oh, sure.
The most, anyways, get back. Sorry.
Yeah. So 12 Monkeys, which is
incredible.
Amazing. I remember I saw it the weekend it came out. I drove 45 minutes to catch a 2 a.m. showing in Century City. and the
2
audience.
a.m.
Yeah. Yes.
So
It's a good
like,
theater, though.
Was Pee Wee Herman there?
oh
Yeah.
no, I was about to say you just let the hooker right out of the car and then you just parked.
The place was packed. It was amazing. You know, all but there was a lot of freaks. But
You think?
yeah. But it was just visually so strange and so wonderful. I also have Children of Men on my list.
Oh,
Oh.
I've not seen that with Clive.
Owen.
Clive Owen.
That
Yeah.
movie did that the twist that I I hate when they do it when the star gets killed halfway through the movie.
Oh, with
Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore. Yeah,
Yeah,
it wasn't.
that was
It
a
wasn't.
very good movie.
It wasn't halfway through. It was actually kind of early on. But
Yeah. Okay, so even before.
yeah. So Children of Men is and it's got problems. I mean, it's politically it in places it's very on the nose, but it also has probably one of the best car chases ever, and so actually like 2 car chases.
And one of the best Steadicam moves ever. The one on the
Yeah.
beach. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's I mean when it really gets cooking, it's really dynamic, and so but when like the scene where Julianne Moore's character is killed, that's I mean
It's shocking. It was a shocking moment.
Yeah, but visually, I mean you're on your edge of your seat
Yeah.
as you're being chased down by these motorcycles and they're driving in reverse and no, it's really an exciting movie to see.
Okay, go on.
Idiocracy.
Oh,
What is that?
I like that movie.
You got the dogs barking.
Yeah, well, it's a
Mike Judge is
Caroline loves Idiocracy.
he's underrated. Mike Judge,
One of the most underrated people of all time. I mean, he had to me the greatest animated show that's ever been made.
I'll say that that Office Space could arguably be a dystopian.
Yeah, it's Mike Judge is a genius, and absolutely, and when people use that word, he is an absolute genius.
But I could never get into Beavis and Butthead
of creation. So go on. So Idiocracy, you got any more?
Yep. They Live, which is John.
Oh, that's on my list. Rowdy Roddy Piper, Keith David, John Carpenter, the woman with those eyes.
The Kirstie Alley lookalike, Meg Forrester.
I've met her many times. She
who was in
nicer.
V. She's in V.
Yeah, those eyes.
Meg Forrester.
Yeah.
She's like I'm sorry. She's the conjoined twin that Kirstie Alley tried to eat but got away.
You're right. It was a tremendous movie.
I love that movie so much. I had the poster on my.
No, it's incredible. Roddy Piper was just fantastic. I mean, it was he was fantastic in that movie. Just fantastic.
All out of bubblegum. Yeah. No, I watched it again recently, and as cheesy as some of the special effects are, the movie still holds up really.
It's
John Carpenter,
though.
Yeah. If you go on, go ahead. Sorry.
No, just saying it's John Carpenter who is a master of this format of this genre of a movie.
Oh well, he once said in an interview it wasn't science fiction, it was a documentary.
It's his indictment. It's his indictment of the quote unquote Reagan years.
Right.
But if you go on YouTube, there is an excellent review of Escape from New York, and the film still holds up, not just the story, but the special effects. And things I didn't know until I watched this review was how many matte paintings were used, and that James Cameron was one of the visual effects artists. He had done some of the canvases, and because their budget was so limited, in their search for a substitute New York that would be fitting for the year 1997, I believe it is. I think they settled on parts of Detroit, big surprise, and East St. Louis.
Why am I blanking on the taxi driver?
Ernest Borgnine,
Ernest Borgnine. Thank you. Thank you.
the hero in Airwolf.
Yep, one of my favorite shows of all
Of
time.
course.
Yeah.
But so Ben, get back. Let's get back. So They Live crossed off my list. What else you got? Because this is the '80s had some tremendous dystopian movies. I'm curious to know, since you brought up They Live, if one of on my list that Lewis hasn't seen, you've seen, which is The Hidden
No,
with Michael Nouri and Kyle MacLachlan.
no. I've not seen it.
Very good. Great movie. I highly recommend it.
Well, tell us a little more about it, because I don't really know a thing about it.
Basically, it's where Kyle MacLachlan comes from a different world, and it's you ever see that John Goodman movie where people could jump bodies, sort of like they're shapeshifters, or like they take over you.
No, but this sounds good because the idea of John Goodman deciding on that body.
No. It wasn't that was Fallen with Denzel Washington, but it's like sort of like where a soul could jump into another's body, and it wasn't a good soul, and it was just sort of this, Michael Nouri being a cop, Kyle MacLachlan being from outer space, and which he sort of seems like he is from, and it worked perfectly. And if you just tuned in, you are listening to the Four Esoterics. We will get to Lewis and producer girlfriend's dystopian movies when we return. Find us at the number 4 ESOTERICS on Twitter, Parlay, iTunes, YouTube, all over. And on that note, and please, guys, all of you, my mother included, because my mother was telling me about watching the show Hannibal, which she finds extremely disturbing, but the original Hannibal, which was it's blanking on me now.
Red
with,
Dragon.
No.
Manhunt.
Manhunter, which is one
Manhunter.
of my favorite movies of all time.
Michael Mann.
Just an incredible movie. But Ben, why don't you take us to a quick commercial break?
Well, the world is strange and
Dystopian-like.
dystopia. I mean, we're living in a kind of a real life dystopia, but we don't want to talk about that so much. We want to talk about what you can do in these strange times. You can still get an excellent meal, even if you're sitting outside, because we've got rules now. But for the duration of this emergency, if you happen to be in the mountains of Southern California and you're looking for the best meal you're going to ever find in the mountains of Southern California, you've got to go to Stone Creek Bistro in Blue Jay, California, 26824 Highway 189. Stone Creek Bistro. Get the steak frites. Try Chef Sam's famous fried chicken sandwich. Saturday nights are all about the prime rib. Check
Best
them out.
looking picture of prime rib I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, bigger than my face. www.stonecreekbistro.com. Hope to see you there.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Four Esoterics, and we're discussing dystopian movies. Ben had many 12 Monkeys that really clicked with me. I mean, it's just tremendous acting in that movie too, and because oftentimes there's cheesy good dystopian like They Live, but then there's like amazing with Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis in 12 Monkeys. But let's get to Lewis's list of dystopian movies, other than Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail.
And When Harry Met Sally.
Yes.
Thinking now, we talked about this when we were talking about TV, because this is part of 80s agitprop, so much so that it scared an entire nation. And immediately following its broadcast, it had a panel discussion of like the Bilderberg Group convened en masse by Ted Koppel, I'm referring to, the day after.
Mm-hmm.
Which if you watch now, you just say, this is this is what put America, the fear of God in America, and a fear as close to or second only to the Cuban Missile Crisis regarding nuclear war. But it was a huge deal at its time. Jason Robards and a bunch of people I don't remember, but
actor,
the best. It's and I want to bring it back to Tom Hanks. It is a crime that he had the audacity to play Ben Bradley in Spielberg's poor man's version of All the President's Men, which was what, The Post, about the Pentagon Papers.
I didn't see it.
With Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would have been better.
But I just want to bring something up because we forgot to talk about this because we were actually talking about this pre-show on the phone. And Ben, you might agree, and Producer Girlfriend was War of the Worlds, which was originally a radio show where
with
everybody
actually
believed that it was the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That was listening to the radio. So I would think that was the first dystopian taste.
I have a story that kind of like is the opposite of that. I was a sophomore in college during 9/11, and I had a roommate who loved to go to raves and take ecstasy. And 3 days after 9/11, she woke up and she turned on the TV and she goes, what is this film that you're watching for class? It's so real. And I said, that's not a film. That is real. That happened 3 days ago.
So she was in a 3-day coma?
Yes. Don't worry. I put a mirror next to her mouth to make sure she was breathing. But
do you know how many people? I'm just a messenger. I'm not saying this is good.
She's a pharmacist now, just so you know.
I know, but do you understand how many people, when you were going to and from the laundry room in the building, were having, and I'll be polite, non-consensual relations with this woman in a 3-day coma?
Lewis, where does your mind go sometimes? I mean, my God.
All I can say is, Producer Girlfriend, you are a good friend for driving her to Planned Parenthood.
The other day, just so everybody, I'll give a little taste of something. The other day,
also found her in the hallway sleeping and picked her up and brought her into her room.
See, there's a recurring motif here. Go ahead,
Judah. Sorry.
Let's get back to your list, Lewis. Let's get back to your list.
So we're coming back to TV. Which brings us back to They Live, because Meg Forster, I think Forster, whatever her name is, with the blue eyes.
It's Meg Foster.
Foster, yeah, the formerly conjoined twin that Kirstie Alley ate off. Said, I'm not going to wait for surgery, and so that
I thought they meant V for Vendetta, which was on my list.
No, V for Victory.
Wow.
For Victory.
Okay.
And this was at a time when they were spending, this was the unheard of sum of $1 million an episode to make V. Mark Singer, his career, to read his resume, is to fall into a dystopian sense of
him and Robert Hayes. But go on.
Yes. So we were talking about TV. We had that. I have not seen Alien Nation.
Yeah. We you know what, Lewis, I want to wait, we'll watch that together. It's an incredible movie. And the TV show, usually a TV show is such a downer from a great movie, but the TV show is exceptional too.
So I'm going to go back, there was a lot of dystopian stuff in the 70s, but it was more political, and it was of a piece regarding Watergate, and here it is. Hold on. This was it's one of my favorite films. It was a satire that over time has become one of the most prescient and unintentionally dystopian films you can see.
Capricorn
and that is
7?
No, because the notion of a black astronaut is still beyond our ability to suspend disbelief.
Was it, by the way, was it Capricorn 7?
Yes, with Elliot Gould. So the two,
Capricorn 1.
Right, the former
1. Thank you, Ben.
and the future Mr. Barbara Streisand. You've got Elliot Gould, and I just want you to know, yes, there are African-American astronauts. Most of them died in space.
And James Brolin. Go on.
Right. So you have the former Mr. Barbara Streisand. The film ends with him running toward the future Mr. Barbara Streisand. If only he could have said, "Don't do it. You're gonna marry this woman." No.
Okay, but go back to it.
The movie I'm referring to is none other than Network.
You know what? That's actually a very good call. But you know what I sort of enjoy that when we're talking about movies, you give a preview to the movie you're going to announce.
Yeah.
You're like, you don't just say the movie, you give a 1.5 minute soliloquy of the coming attraction to the movie you're going to say.
With a dollop of racism.
A dollop, yeah.
Does anyone else get nervous that they see that Lewis always has a pen in his hand when he
'Cause
gets
I'm
really
drawing.
emotional?
No, I'm drawing.
And that's what I was going to ask, because it makes me nervous that you have a pen in your hand and you're reading off of a laptop. Like, I
No,
hope
I'm
you're
not writing.
using-
No, I'm not scribbling a kill list. I'm drawing right now a leopard for my daughter.
Phil brought up a song, I mean, a movie that I know the song, I'm not familiar with the movie, We're Not Going to Take It Anymore.
I don't, has anyone heard of this movie?
I am not familiar with that, but
Phil,
I know about Twisted
Please
Sister.
elaborate in the comments, Phil, because we're at sea.
Oh, that's
Oh.
from Network.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
mad as hell, and we're not.
I'm not gonna.
Anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you know what, Lewis? It's actually
Howard Beale.
it's good, a fantastic movie. Okay, producer girlfriend, what do you got for us? As far as I'm always curious, what's your dystopian?
Well, I already talked about two of them, which was Metropolis. It actually was on my list to talk about. And then Blade Runner, which is funny. I have to add in one more Blade Runner story. I've never actually seen it in its entirety, and I haven't seen it because I knew it would piss Larry off. That was the type of like father-daughter relationship we had. And I still to this day feel extremely like guilty that I haven't seen it. So I should probably see it during this pandemic. The other two movies I have on my list are Fight Club. Did anyone mention that?
No.
Good choice.
That's a very good choice.
And then I had V for Vendetta, which I remember seeing in the theater and really loving. But I haven't seen it in a while. So
here we go. So here's the two things. So
Phil had a good comment.
Yeah.
About Blade Runner 2049. I chatted with Sean Young and she hated being in it.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised she remembered being in it.
yeah.
She wasn't really. She was digitally recreated.
But you're like the movies you guys are bringing up are Oscar nominated caliber movies.
Yeah, okay, but I'll give you another one. My parents' wedding.
There's two.
My parents' wedding video.
Or my parents' wedding video.
It's available on 8mm.
And then the remarry wedding videos.
Yeah. My bar mitzvah, which is on a Sony camcorder. It's arguably one of the most dystopian religiously themed shorts produced in the last 40 years.
Lewis, can I tell you something? If you have it, one day we'll play it. We'll play
of course,
of your bar mitzvah on this.
With Reverend Berkowitz, a man who used less Hebrew than an Episcopal priest.
Can we do an episode where you guys talk about your bar mitzvahs and then Ben
Of
can talk about his
course.
fantasy bar mitzvah?
I can't wait. I want to hear about Judas where he screws up and the congregation yells at him in Hebrew because he went to an Orthodox synagogue. Whereas if mine was all transliteration, you just had you could fake your way through it.
No, as my mother who's listening to it can attest, I got very blessed with a very short reading because it came out in a leap year. I only had to read one section. And let me tell you, that section took me about 1.5 years to memorize. It was an interesting experience to say the least. Phil's was 45 years ago tomorrow, so that's almost happy birthday. I thought we already wished you a happy birthday, Phil, but almost happy birthday, Phil. Okay, so producer girlfriend, what else do you have on your dystopian list?
That's it. I just
That's
had
it?
4.
You're done?
Well, because I know that Ben and you and Lewis, like you guys come with like a stacked list. So I try and do something that I think people either won't think of or something that they'll want to revisit or they'll want to,
No, I think
Talk about Fight Club
Ben's
for a minute.
picks were phenomenal.
See, I've never read anything by Chuck Palahniuk, but I would argue that the film is probably better than the book, and that's a rare exception.
Yeah, I've not read the book either. I liked the movie probably more than is healthy, morally healthy.
Which one are you discussing?
Fight Club.
Fight
Talk
Club.
about Fight Club.
Mm.
That my only real, but I liked the movie a lot.
What about American Psycho?
Wait, I'm not.
That's not that's a satire.
Yeah, that's a satire.
Okay.
But Fight Club, there's a when I used to work at Investors Business Daily, there was a bar not far from the office called the Fireside, long defunct, that they used for. They closed it for a week so they could get 10 seconds into Fight Club, where they're walking through this very dark, crowded bar, and they go down into the basement where the Fight Club is. That was the Fireside.
Can I tell you something?
It looked nothing like that, and it had no basement. And they closed us down. They closed it down for a week, and that's all we got was 10 lousy seconds.
If you're going to burn your restaurant down for the insurance money, you don't name it the Fireside.
No, they closed it and they turned it into something I don't know, bougie and lame, and then that place subsequently closed. So
here's a great dystopian movie in the sense that it's a heap of garbage, but I'd watch it. But I'd watch it if it were on right now.
Your
It's
Life?
got what?
Your Life?
No,
God.
no. That's suicide prevention. So this is a movie with Chris Makepeace from My Bodyguard,
I thought you were gonna say My Body.
Great movie. One of the most
And-
underrated movies of all time.
and Lee Majors, where Lee Majors has this kit car that's got a Porsche name on it, where I'm sure the actual Porsche automotive company sued them. And
What
it's,
was the name?
I think it's called The Last Race or something like that. There's no more gasoline on the planet, but there's enough to power this car, driven by Lee Majors with Chris Makepeace in the passenger seat.
I think you
as
like
they-
saying his name. So
as
for
they-
the next show, I want you to get every Chris Makepeace movie, and
The Terry Fox story, one of the early HBO movies based on the true story. And talk about method acting. They not only found a guy that looked like Terry Fox, but for the cast they called, they said, yes, we want an amputee.
okay,
They
and
found
by
a
the way,
guy with one leg who was
By the
also
way,
Canadian.
Phil wrote Starship Troopers. That was a good movie.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, that's a
They've
good
done
pick.
remakes of it.
So also we forgot total. I mean, or somebody might have brought it up. We brought up Total Recall.
Yeah.
Oh, another Philip K. Dick adaptation.
Right.
Just like Blade Runner.
Incredible movie. I don't think RoboCop could be understated about how dystopian that was and
The
how
Last Chase.
it really came to fruition. Running Man, right?
Think of
Yep.
Total Recall. I think of Total Recall in, I don't know, because they came out around the same time, but I link Total Recall with The Running Man.
That's
Running
no,
Man's great.
it's by the way, Michael Ironside was in both. We brought up he was in Total Recall, plus he was in Escape from New York.
Yeah, that's right.
I just thought, but you're right. I bring them up. I think of them at the same time. But how great was Running Man with Richard Dawson?
Yeah.
As I mean, just
Killian, I'll be back.
just an incredible.
Only in a
movie.
rerun.
And the other one I had was Red Dawn, which was as dystopian as humanly possible.
Can I say something about Running Man? That was back when, and I'm not that eclectic in my taste of non-Caucasian women, but Maria Conchita Alonso, if she wants to wear that outfit and can still look the way she did, I'm happy to run all over my man.
By the way, what about The Fifth Element?
That's not dystopian. That's just shit.
Oh, come on. The Fifth Element is love. What's wrong with you?
I mean, Gary Oldman. Come on, man. And
That
the
was
guy's
a-
the guy that is the director from Taken that I can never remember his name.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Luc Besson?
The guy, yes, Luc Besson.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyways, if you just tuned in, you are listening to the Four Esoterics, no politics allowed. And what's sort of fun about this type of topic is when we're discussing dystopian, I never looked at those movies as I never saw them to be. I get the political basis of them, but I never really thought of them as political because maybe I was 15 or 14 when I saw them. So Escape from New York was never really political. I didn't get the anti-Reagan sentiment in that movie.
No, it's not in that. It's in They Live.
Oh, and They Live. I just didn't get it. I
No,
mean,
Escape from New York is a documentary.
yeah, that's
When he made the movie, he just said, make it in the future, but film it in the present. And it's, it was a documentary.
And when we get back from break, I want to invite the attendees to share with us their dystopian movies, because I'm curious from people from Australia, from people from England, and Red Dawn, by the way, I've discussed this in the past, was so hated outside of this country. I mean, I think it was hated by many people in this country, but it was really just like John Milius blames that movie for him getting blacklisted in Hollywood. But Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit about American greatness?
Well, this show's not about politics, but American greatness is. And at American Greatness, every day, 7 days a week, you'll find some of the finest political commentary in the land, whether it's from Conrad Black, Victor Davis Hanson, Julie Kelly, who's got a new book out.
Great book.
Sugi. Yeah, great book. And of course, Liz Sheld's Morning Greatness, roundup of the most important stories of the day. You can check us out at www.amgreatness.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the 4 Esoterics. It's at 4 Esoterics, the number 4, ESOTERICS. Like us on Twitter, iTunes, YouTube, Parler, anywhere on social media you could find us. Producer Girlfriend, could we open this up to attendees?
Sure.
And,
let me start to. If you would like to be admitted to the panel, let me know in the chat so I don't admit everyone.
You might not want to be, and we don't want to force you into chat.
I was going to say about Terry Gilliam. There's a heap of crap movie he did with Matt Damon. That's in the future, and he's
the adjuster.
Is that it? Where
the Adjustment Bureau or something like
that?
No,
that's a different movie. Oh. But yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
You know, it's funny. Now that we're thinking about this, actually, what's his name? Tom Cruise was in a very good one. Live, Die, and Repeat.
The
Edge of Tomorrow. Something.
Tomorrow. I love Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat. I think that was the line from it. But
I love that movie.
Yeah, and Phil, you have to unmute yourself and put on your video. But yeah, so what are your thoughts, though? I'm curious. Have you guys? I couldn't watch past season 3. Was The Walking Dead. It just seemed to me to be the same episode every week.
I couldn't get past the second episode of season 1.
The second episode.
First of all, the series begins with a little zombie girl getting shot in the head.
Yeah.
Which immediately turned me off, but I stuck through that, and I stuck through.
Lewis now is going to revisit it because of that.
I couldn't.
I was about to say sold.
Yeah, no, I never got into that show.
Kristen Fowler agrees with you from before about your dystopian was A Clockwork Orange. She can't think of a more horrific film. I got to be honest. I agree with her. I think it's one of the most horrific movies that's ever been made.
Yes. Yes.
And Producer Girlfriend, does anybody else want to attend, or is just Phil? Because Phil, we can't hear you. You needed to put on your audio. You're a master of show. You have 4 or 5 different shows on the air, Phil. You should be able to figure out your way in here. But so we forgot about in the last 15 years or 20 years, you've had a few good Tom Cruise movies that are very dystopian. Edge of Tomorrow. You had, Producer Girlfriend and I saw a movie that she really liked, which was Ad Astra.
Love it. That moon chase, which I showed Ben the last time he was over at my house.
Yeah. That
moon chase alone is worth the price of admission.
It was severely cut down from the script. That moon chase was from what I hear, supposed to be 2-3 times longer.
Wow.
A lot was cut from that movie.
And that moon chase is great as it is, so I can only imagine.
What about Gattaca?
Gattaca is great.
And by the way, producer girlfriend, the only thing that I told her, the biggest thing that bothered me about Ad Astra was I love Donald Sutherland. And you know what, like when they put somebody in a movie and sort of like the Julianne Moore thing, where you're like, isn't he going to be coming back into the movie? You know, they're in it for such a short period of time that I was like, I couldn't understand. Like Liv Tyler was in it for 2 minutes.
Both of those had more in the script, and they cut a lot of them out from the inside info I know.
It's like that brief scene of with Steven Seagal in Executive Decision. I know we wanted more.
That's right. He fell out of the bathroom, right?
John Leguizamo tells such an amazing story because he was in that movie where Seagal is just pacing back and forth saying, I'm in command. I'm in command. And John Leguizamo just started laughing because here's this guy, I'm in command. You know, you're in command of what? And then he just aikidos him across the wall. And John Leguizamo fell to the floor and he's just like, what? And everybody's got these stories. Rob Schneider, Google Rob Schneider, Steven Seagal, because he did a movie with him.
You have YouTubed me every single one.
I love it where he's just like, he comes out of his trailer.
Ben, do you get these YouTube texts?
Oh, yeah.
From him?
Oh, sure.
I just read the greatest script ever written. Really? Who wrote it? I did. So it's just.
Well, talk about a dystopian life would be Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
But, so, Ben, anything else you'd like to add to dystopian movies or television? Because you actually, I want to see 12 Monkeys again right now. I've watched it 3 times. I still don't get the ending. And it's one of those movies where I sort of, I can't,
You don't get the ending?
Well, she's sitting next to him on the plane, right? That woman, the
Yeah.
older.
She's the failsafe.
Right. So he's dead, right?
Yeah. They
fail. Yeah. I think you need to watch The Adjustment Bureau just to understand that it's not 12 Monkeys and every other movie you've been talking about.
Thank you. No, but you could take away that he actually lives in the movie. That's my point.
Yeah, I don't. Well, okay, it is a bit.
How?
I don't see how, but okay.
Well, I watched a different movie.
Yeah.
I was watching The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Well, we forgot, by the way, we forgot Terminator.
Oh,
Terminator
tremendous.
2.
We forgot Terminator 1 and Terminator 2.
I saw Terminator 2 on 70 millimeter. It was amazing.
But we forgot T3 on purpose.
Yeah, and
Yes.
everything after.
Everything
And,
after.
Caroline wrote The Onion movie is pretty dystopian. I'm not exactly
familiar.
sure what The Onion movie is. Caroline, you'd have to explain that to us. Maybe that's maybe that's a movie from an Australian movie that we're not familiar with.
I mean, there's.
What about Memento?
No, that's just that's a good thriller.
Is it?
I wanted to bring it up for Caroline because it stars Guy Pearce. So trying to give an Australian shout out to that. But you know what? Before we close, let's think of a few dystopian thoughts, Ben, because I think Silent Lucidity might be one of the most dystopian songs.
Oh, I hate that song. I hate that album. We're talking about Empire, Queensryche's follow-up to Operation Mindcrime, which is a dystopian. That's a dystopian concept album right there. Operation Mindcrime is 100% dystopian, whereas Empire is just treacly earnest bullshit. That's what Empire.
Tell us what you really think, Ben.
It's not very good.
I love how Phil brought up Silent Running by Mike and the Mechanics. And Phil, you're a good guy. I mean, and I like Mike and the Mechanics. Don't get me wrong. In the Living Years, one of the best songs ever written. Not one of the best songs ever written, but it's an awfully good song. And All I Need Is a Miracle. But I don't know, Silent Running. But Louis, final thoughts from you about dystopia.
The Inland Empire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Producer girlfriend.
COVID-19.
Oh, Silent Running, I guess he said, is a movie too. I'm not familiar with it. Are any of you guys familiar with it?
No. Persians.
It's a
We're still
submarine
going with
movie, right?
dystopias.
It was a
right?
1985 movie. Phil, I will probably not watch it, but I will trust on that it's a there's only so many 80s movies you could watch that are kitsch. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you have your list of like 80s, like sort of like there's not much more to add on.
I hear
Would you
ya.
agree, Ben?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think we've sort of nailed except I can't believe we forgot Terminator. And so, Ben, we're going to miss you on Tuesday as you celebrate your 37th birthday. And in Big Bear, you'll be missed. Are you going to spend it with your kid?
I don't know yet. We'll
Well,
see.
we hope you will. Or if not, you could hang out with Lewis. And
That would be spectacular.
I will gladly pay for the bus ticket from where you are.
All right.
For that. And producer girlfriend, any final thoughts on dystopia? You know what? Can I say something? You know what? We are living in very dystopian times. When you walk into pharmacies and see people wearing masks, it's it is as dystopian as it comes. And I think there's a certain you know, watching Total Recall or watching those movies, there's, as dystopian as they are, they actually could bring you a little hope.
Oh. Okay.
What?
Silent Running, 1972.
It made
Yeah, Bruce Dern.
Bruce Dern. Screenplay by Michael Cimino and Stephen Bochco and Derek Washburn.
And it's got Ron Rifkin or whatever his name is.
I'm glad you pronounced his name. I always thought it was Michael Cimino.
Oh my God.
The guy that got banned from Hollywood for
Heaven's Gate. Yeah, The Deer Hunter.
One of the most exceptional movies of all time. And on a very, very dystopian movie. Anyways, on that note, we hope we made you forget about the world for a little bit.
by talking about those films that bring a smile to your face.
You know what? Can I say something? They do bring a smile to me. Total Recall was an amazing movie. 12 Monkeys is an incredible movie. Terminator.
Yeah.
Well, 1 second. I have a quick question. T2 is better than T1. We all agree?
Oh, sure.
Agree.
They're both great.
No, they're both great. But T2, he's the hero, so it's sort of a little more of an enjoyable. I think Pulp Fiction. What about Pulp Fiction?
No, that's
No.
Or Reservoir Dogs.
no.
No.
He doesn't do dystopia.
Yeah.
Okay, I gave it a shot. And on that note, let's thank producer girlfriend for putting this together at the last minute and getting through our technical difficulties. Let's thank Ben Boychik from AM Greatness. And I and I know you always say it's about politics, but I encourage everybody to go and read it because it will expand your mind. And it's got Ben is truly the best editor in the business, and I say that with all my heart, and I speak.
I just like to make a plug here. I know he couldn't be on this show, but I'd just like to make a plug for Chris Buzzkirk, whose response to all of the movies we mentioned would be, they're okay.
You should have said in the words of the great Chris Buzzkirk, it's good. It's a good script. Good writing. I like
not bad.
It.
Not bad.
Yeah. I saw it with Gina. We had some good popcorn. It was a good movie. It was fine. And I want to thank you all for Caroline, Donna, Kathleen, Kristen, my mother, of course, and Lewis for not offending Jews in this episode. My mother is eternally grateful. She wishes you a Shabbat Shalom. And we will see you on Tuesday, minus the Boychik. And we will see you guys soon. Follow us at the number 4 ESOTRERICS on iTunes, YouTube, Twitter. I know I messed up the last one. I was perfect until then. Ben, 4 Esoterics. It's the number 4 ESOTERICS on iTunes, YouTube, and all those places. Have a great weekend, everybody. Caroline, have a great weekend. Donna, like I said, Kristen, my mother,
Phil.
everybody.
Cheers.
Out.